Hi everyone, it's Howie Gearhauser here alongside my dad, Dr. G. In today's video, we are going to talk about deuterium depleted water. I know we've mentioned deuterium before in some of our other videos, but today we wanted to talk about water that actually has deuterium removed from it. Now, with some of our health coaching clients, we do like putting them on a deuterium depleted protocol where they're actually drinking this water. That's kind of case by case. It's not for everyone, but in some cases that is a recommendation, and we want to go through how we decide whether or not deuterium depletion is something that might help you get your energy up or maybe even help slow the aging process. There's various benefits that have been shown scientifically to happen from consuming this water. So we'll dive into this a little bit deeper, go a little bit into the science, and then you can decide if this is something you want to try out. So Dad, can you give us a little bit more background on deuterium depleted water and how it came about?
Okay, deuterium is the heavy isotope of hydrogen. What that means is that chemicals are listed in the periodic table, and hydrogen is the first one. Hydrogen is the biggest element in the sun, and there's over 100 different elements. Some of them I think are man-made, but number one is hydrogen. So hydrogen has one proton, and then it also has one electron. So hydrogen having one proton is hydrogen. Now, you can have an isotope of that by adding atomic weight, but not adding another proton, because if you add another proton, that would be another positive charge. But deuterium is a proton and a neutron in the nucleus. So it doubles the weight of that nucleus, but it doesn't carry a charge. That's why they call it a neutron. It has a neutral charge, but it doubles the weight of that atom or that nucleus so that it has a different reaction in chemicals. Now, if you think of our body, 99% of the molecules in our body are water. Of the molecules in our body, we're not 99% water by weight. But 99% of the molecules, because water molecule is so small, but 99% of the molecules in this is water. So you can see we have tons of hydrogen in us just from the water alone, when 99% of your molecules are water, and water is H2, two H's, and an oxygen. So we have a tremendous amount of it. And if the way it reacts in chemical reactions changes with this added mass of having that extra neutron in the nucleus, it just, makes it a different actor. Now, what's interesting is if you look at past history, like 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, and I don't know the mechanism exactly why, but deuterium is quite a bit higher now. It's naturally in our water, our ocean, rivers, clouds, rain. Deuterium's naturally in that, but it's much higher than it was 20,000 years ago when humans were still here. So humans in the past were exposed to less deuterium in their environment. So that's increased a lot. So the level now is about 150 parts per million in like seawater. River waters are going to be pretty close to that. We test our patients and our health coaching clients sometimes. As Howard mentioned, we don't recommend everyone do this, but if there's enough things going on that we think going with deuterium depletion would be a good idea, then we test for that. And so even people's bodies can have close to 150 or even 150 parts per million, which isn't a good sign, because one of the things we do when we do metabolism is breaking down the food that we eat into energy. When we do metabolism, the byproducts are carbon dioxide, which we breathe out and also is in our bloodstream, and water, which is very low in deuterium. So that's just the way our mitochondria works. Deuterium depletes water. And that's why with your diet, you want to stick with nature-made things and not processed things because of this issue. With man-processed things, they're using tap water, or they're feeding animals abnormal foods animals that we're going to eat, so they can be loaded with deuterium. So what happens is when the heavy isotope of hydrogen is really technically the fuel that makes ATP, which is one of our energy molecules. It's the fuel, but deuterium, if it's used as the fuel, breaks our motor. There's actually a nanomotor, meaning it looks just like a car engine, but it's a molecule that acts as a car engine. And it has a rotor that spins, and when it spins, it spits out ATP. It spits out over 1,000 ATP per minute. So we make this tremendous amount of ATP, a molecule. We make our body weight of it every day. And if the deuterium is there instead, then it breaks the engine. We can handle that when we're young, but our body, when it's young and healthy, it compartmentalizes deuterium. So it keeps it separated in the blood, separated from inside the mitochondria. So the compartments have a different level of deuterium. But as we age, it kind of all blends together. And like I say, when we get these people have multiple health issues, a lot of times their deuterium levels are the same as seawater. They become an equilibrium. Well, equilibrium, everyone thinks being in equilibrium is good. Well, if you're in equilibrium with our environment, you're dead. That's the definition of being dead. Life is kept far from equilibrium. That's what life is. Fighting equilibrium, fighting that natural tendency to bring everything back into equilibrium, and you're dead. So it takes energy to stay far from equilibrium. So that's why how our energy system works is so important, and why deuterium might be something to consider.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there's kind of two sides to this equation. There being more deuterium in the way we go about what we're consuming. So from a tap water standpoint, that's elevated. The processing of a lot of the food we eat, and as you mentioned, the animal products we eat too, when they're eating processed foods, they get loaded up with deuterium, which is unnatural. There tends to be a balance of deuterium because deuterium is important in nature. It has its own function. The problem is when you have too much of it, it kind of wreaks havoc on the mitochondria. So there's the side of there being too much deuterium. There's also the side of our environment damaging our mitochondria so that it can't keep deuterium levels regulated within the cell. So when the mitochondria lose their functionality due to environmental factors, the deuterium can build up kind of like a sludge builds up inside of a car's engine. So then that engine continues to break, and you have this downward spiral where your mitochondria start failing at an increased rate, and the amount of energy that you have to operate goes down because the mitochondria are responsible for creating that usable energy within our body. So it's a two-sided situation where you have the damage to the mitochondria combined with the elevated deuterium levels within what we're consuming that's really leading to this premature aging crisis that we have going on. So what are some of the indicators that your deuterium levels might be too high? And maybe deuterium depletion is something you might want to consider.
Well, it probably goes back to, and again, this isn't researched a lot. You can't patent deuterium depleted water. We talk about how patent drugs are the lifeblood of research, and so there's such a small amount of research on this. So a lot of it is just looking at the biochemistry and the physics in nature and what happens in nature, and kind of saying, well, this makes sense, and kind of going with it versus, oh, they've done a randomized placebo-controlled trial and I'm going to do this, using deuterium. So having this extra deuterium, there's a link, there's a whole mechanism that's been worked out in science of how it alters our DNA and predisposes us to cancer. And so deuterium in Eastern countries, Eastern Europe, use this as a treatment for cancer. It's actually approved for veterinary treatment of cancer, and it works. There's been a bunch of studies showing that it can shrink cancers or reverse cancers. But again, not a lot of research because you can't make billions of dollars off of deuterium depleted water, because anyone with the money to build a distiller, and this takes a very fancy distiller, it's not just something you can do on your own. It's a big investment to have this distiller, and it is not energy efficient, or it takes a lot of energy to make deuterium depleted water. So it's not something we would recommend like the whole planet go on to, even though China has looked into ways of trying to provide deuterium depleted water to their whole population. So the science is out there. It's ignored by mainstream Western science, pretty much ignored, even though there's a researcher out of UCLA that made this link to the mechanism of how cancer happens. And they use the magnetic resonance spectroscopy to follow the deuterium through the pathways. And it gets so complex, where there's ring after ring of pathways and feedbacks. And so it's highly complex. So we just try to make it simple. But if somebody has the modern disease, then it's something to consider. But it's a biohack. It's not proven in any study. It's a theory. It's water. Could it harm you? Probably not. But could it? I think it's safer than Belviq, that was just removed from the market, the weight loss drug. We just did a video on that. And so it's something that I use pretty periodically as a theoretical cancer preventative. So I'll kind of, theoretically, I'm cleaning out my system. As I say, the link biochemically to how this alters our DNA, it's there. So there is a mechanism that's defined in science that is there. And every year they have a world symposium on deuterium depletion of a bunch of scientists from all over the world, although very few from America. America, they're into the dollar, not what causes cancer. I mean, I hate to say that because, that's not talking about the individual, but just that's how our society has molded everything. Everything's about, making the $1 billion, hitting the holy grail. So somebody's really sick, somebody's really fatigued, someone whose back's against the wall. Because what we found in our health coaching is if somebody is really low energy or really sick, they don't have enough energy to be motivated to do the things that they have to do, like get up and watch the morning sunrise or whatever it is of our protocols. We usually, when we have a health coaching client, we prioritize them. We go, well, this would be number one for you. This would be number two. This would be number three. And we know that person ain't going to do number one, without some help, without a boost. So we give them the risk-benefit analysis in that there's no proof this works. There's a theoretical risk, just like crossing your street, to go to Walgreens to pick up your prescription of Belviq. Oh, you can't get that now. It's FDA pulled it off the market, so you'll have to find a substitute. So there could be a risk. So we tell you this. It's over the counter. Anyone can buy it. There's a product in Romania. A little bottle like this costs about $8. As I said, it's very energy intensive to make it. You didn't see me do that. There's a company in the United States that Howard will tell you about where we get our water, but you can get it here too. They have a distributor somewhere. If you Google, I can't pronounce that name. It's some Romanian or Hungarian name that they don't teach us Americans how to pronounce words with two consonants in front.
Yeah, the brand that we get our water from is extralightwater.com. The brand itself is Hydro Health. So you can go to extralightwater.com. We're also going to have an affiliate link set up in the description. So if you want to, we get a small kickback from that. So if you want to buy through that link, that'd be helpful because it helps further our cause. But if you don't feel like supporting us, you can just go to extralightwater.com too. That's an option for you. But we do appreciate you buying through the link if you can. So there's various, I guess, dilutions, you could say, parts per million. The strongest, meaning the most deuterium depleted, is 25 parts per million. So that's going to deplete your deuterium the fastest. Now, the strategy behind drinking the water is different for everyone. Okay, it has to do with how much deuterium do you actually have. There is a way to measure that. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can reach out. There is a way to measure your deuterium levels from that information, combined with how much water are you drinking on a daily basis, environmental factors. There's a lot that goes into this. You kind of go on a regimen of, I'm going to drink X amount of water per day. As my dad mentioned, this isn't for everyone, and the results vary. Some people notice a dramatic change in energy. Some people don't really notice anything. I think there's just a lot going on. It's one biohack. There's a lot of things we need to be doing in order to optimize our health and our mind. This is one option. It's a good one for some people. It doesn't make sense for others. It just kind of depends. So if you did want to work with us, we would tell you whether or not deuterium depletion is something that makes sense for your unique situation. But you might want to go do your homework on this too. What else can we say about deuterium depletion and just how this has evolved into the therapy that it is now? And just giving a little more advice to those who might want to consider this. What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, well, I just would mention one other source of information about this. There's you can Google Centers for Deuterium Depletion. So this is located in Southern California, and they also have water that they sell called Preventa. And these are good people, and one of the people involved with this is one of those major scientists that discovered some of the feedback loops and how that heavy hydrogen gets incorporated into DNA to cause problems. So that's another resource. And they're actually doing clinical trials of using deuterium depleted water as an adjunct to regular cancer treatment, whether it be chemotherapy or radiation or whatever. So they're doing these studies now. So it could be down the line, everyone will get this. Again, I'm not holding my breath because no one's going to fund this. No one. The government's not, because they're lobbied by the drug companies. So the government doesn't want to get in trouble with the pharmaceutical companies that pays the FDA salaries. So in my opinion, this isn't going to happen. There's a book on treating cancer with deuterium depleted water out of the Eastern Bloc countries. So there's a book, How to Defeat or Defeating Cancer, I think is the name of the book. Sommelier is the author. And it can give you protocols, but this was written, 20 years ago. So think of the snail's pace that science is advancing. It's pretty amazing. So I just wanted to give you a couple of other of those resources. Now, we also look at a deuterium depleted diet that we talk about in another video, where if you get foods from nature. Now, one of the exceptions to that rule usually is fruit. Fruit, it has a tendency to be high in deuterium. Now, deuterium is good for growth. Unfortunately, growth isn't what you want a cancer cell doing. So fruit, that's why we use fruit as a seasonal thing, because when you have more sun power, you see, the sun is so important. I have my office outdoors because the sun deuterium depletes you. It's not $8 a bottle. It's free.
Exactly. And the water, again, it's one of many different things that you need to try out. We're all individuals, so we're all going to respond differently to the various protocols. That's why I think it's really important, like if you're serious about getting your health dialed in, that you work with someone who can kind of look at everything from a bird's eye view and help you pinpoint what things might move the needle the most for you. Because when you have hundreds of different things you could be doing, how are you going to know which one you need to start with? We have the pattern recognition from working with so many people that we can have a pretty good idea of where you should start and the priority and the sequence in which you should be executing these various protocols. So if that's interesting to you, you should check out our health coaching. But if not, go test on yourself. You got to do your own experimentation. Go try the different protocols and see which ones make you feel more energetic, more at peace, more vibrant. Those are going to be the ones that are going to work for you. Not every single thing we recommend is going to be the holy grail in terms of optimizing your health. So this is just another thing that we want to let you in on that can be very powerful, but isn't for everyone. Just another thing to consider. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd add one other hack. There is another mechanism that your body uses as a backup mechanism to get the light hydrogen or the deuterium depleted hydrogen or the deuterium depleted water, and that is the serine glycine recycling cycles. So the serine glycine, the way you do that, just in a nutshell, is bone broth, which is high in those amino acids that can contribute that light hydrogen into the mitochondria in lieu of the mitochondria being broken because it's clogged up with deuterium. So this serine glycine cleavage system is a backup system within us that we can augment with bone broth. So that's one of the kind of the key things that one of my mentors calls survivor stew or survivor soup. When you're in this environment where deuterium is attacking you from every angle, it's like your bomb shelter, bone broth. So bone broth, glycine's good for our gut. So bone broth has many benefits. Just be sure it's from organic animals. You don't want the confinement raised animals and get those bones. They've been shot up with hormones and given antibiotics and all this stuff. Fed glyphosate laden grain. Glyphosate is one of the ubiquitous toxins that we all have in our body, and you've got to go with the organic to start lowering it. And glyphosate is a whole nother topic. We'll have a whole video about it because it's so important.
Cool. I think that concludes this video. Make sure you're checking out our other content. We have so much free stuff. Our goal is to really equip humanity with as many protocols and things that you can try out as possible, totally free. We're not hiding information from any of you guys. We want you to have it all. Just make sure you go and implement it. Go try some of these things. You're not going to know if they're going to work for you if you just watch videos and don't implement. So go start implementing. Go check out extralightwater.com if you're interested in giving the deuterium depleted water a shot. See you on the next video. Thanks, Dad.
See ya.